carry on our discussion with the ICT CS, Owalo, and it's only appropriate that we now talk about public Wi-Fi, free public Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Right, off the back of that story.
Yes.
We've seen you launch hotspot locations in Nairobi, Nyeri, Nyanza, just to name a few.
Yeah.
Who are you targeting with the locations, and what's the expected impact?
You see, this is part of the digital infrastructure initiative that we are putting in place. We are basically targeting people who are in markets, we are targeting people who are in schools, and we are targeting people who are engaged in various value chains within the Kenyan economy. The purpose of launching the digital free Wi-Fi hotspot is to enable Kenyans get involved in e-commerce so that we don't have physical movement of individuals to transact. Once you have got the internet in place, then you can have somebody showcasing what he or she has in the market, including the mamambogas and other itinerary traders. The buyer or the target market are able to see what somebody is selling. They are able to engage using the technology, and we even go ahead a step further and ensure that the good is transported to the intended buyer without a physical interaction. So it's basically an initiative that is geared towards e-commerce, and that is actually the horizon that we must target.
How many hotspots so far?
So far, we have done 17 hotspots. In Nairobi, we have done City Market, we have done Mudhurwa, we have done Nyeri together with the Deputy President, we have done Bondo, we have done Ahero. Tomorrow, in the morning, I'm launching a free Wi-Fi hotspot in Kapsabet. And then at 2 o'clock, I'm launching a free Wi-Fi hotspot in Kericho.
And how many more in 2023 do you want to roll out, or between now and 2027, for example?
25,000 hotspots. So we are looking at an average of 5,000 per year. 5,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots per year.
To reach that particular target?
Yes.
Let me read a comment from a viewer who says, please ask Waziri, he launched free Wi-Fi at Marigiti Market and at the Nyeri Market to help traders market their produce. Yeah. Does the Waziri or the ministry follow up to ensure that free Wi-Fi is working? He seems to be concerned that there's a challenge.
Yes. It is not just a question of going to launch this. We monitor on a daily basis the activity levels based on the launch of those free Wi-Is. You know, one integral milestone we have realized is that we have moved the youth who have been idle and crowding around the bus stops. They are now moving to close proximity of the markets where the Wi-Fi hotspots.
Free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so that they get involved in some gainful economic activity. The direction we are taking is that we want to leverage on technology for purposes of digital job for our youth. There's a wide space of jobs there. In fact, we can create a minimum of 1.5 to 2 million digital jobs over the next 2 years if we leverage on technology. I'll give you an example. About 1 month ago, His Excellency the President launched a digital hub at the Kabete Polytechnic. We talked to 2 of those graduates from the Kabete Polytechnic who hitherto had just left Form 4, had got no source of livelihood, did not qualify to go to university, but decided to get trained in technology. Today, they have been engaged by tech companies, global tech companies, and they earn money in dollars to the tune of 150 to 200,000 per month. This is somebody who left Form 4 last year. So what we are saying is that Kenyans need to understand that we no longer have the white-collar jobs that hitherto were in existence. If anything, even if you got the white-collar jobs, you will not be rewarded to a level commensurate with your contributing component to the job market because of competition in the labor market. So the horizon is digital jobs. So we want to encourage as many of our youth as possible to get trained in technology. All we are asking the tech companies to do is to create for us digital jobs, because within our youth we have got an abundance, in fact an avalanche of skills, competencies and capabilities.
Okay. Yeah. Wouldn't it make more economic sense to lobby the telcos that you deal with on a day-to-day basis to simply make data cheaper or remove the taxes on data, so that instead of us relying on hotspots, what we access on our phones is almost free?
But that is actually what we have done already. We have already, in fact, in the first week of the Kenya Kwanza government in office, the president engaged the telcos. We had a meeting with them at the Norfolk Hotel, and they drastically reduced the cost of data by 50%. So we are not just looking at reduction of the cost of data. We are going the extra mile as government to take the initiative of ensuring that where we can, depending on the resources available at our potential, we are able to offer free internet. But one thing you need to understand is that the cost of data is actually a function of the cost of the inputs which go into that process. You start by looking at the cost of infrastructure and so on and so forth. What we are doing is that we are encouraging the telecom companies to avoid unnecessary duplicity of effort by way of ICT infrastructure so that we can put in place a framework that permits shared infrastructure. For example, there is no point for Safaricom to roll out a cable, Telecom rolls out a cable in the same area, Airtel rolls out a cable in the same area. It doesn't make economic sense. They can pull together resources so long as we have got an enabling legal and policy framework in place so that we have got shared infrastructure, ICT infrastructure. If that happens, they are going to enjoy economies of scale and their unit costs are going to go down, and that will translate into a fundamental reduction in the cost of data.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure those who engage in digital jobs are celebrating some of the milestones you've spoken of.
Yeah.
On one hand, we can see deliberate attempts to make the internet cheaper, the rollout of these public Wi-Fi hotspots.
Yeah.
But they are concerned about the activities by the taxman, who seems to have really looked at your sector as the sector where the newest taxes will be generated. For example, I know a 16% tax will be levied on e-books and video conferencing, on music and video consumption, on certain online platforms.
Yeah.
Some would ask, is this a case of one step forward, two steps back?
I wouldn't say so. You see, what is happening, we are basically just reacting to the demands of the market, or what is happening in our operational environment, because ICT is the fastest growing sector in the global space. It's not just in Kenya. So if the taxman is looking for revenue, they will target ICT, okay? Just the same way when we are looking for jobs.
Harder.
No, not necessarily, not necessarily. Because even us, when we are looking for jobs, we are targeting the digital space. So it's not just the taxman which is targeting that. What we need to do is that we need to leverage on technology so that at macro level, we enhance the level of efficiency and effectiveness in our production processes so that we create jobs, we bring more people into the tax revenue so that as opposed to increasing taxes based on that widened tax revenue, we can actually, the government can actually offer the finance its public expenditure, either at the current level of taxation or lower levels of taxes. So we don't necessarily need to review our fiscal policies by targeting the digital space.
Okay.
Absolutely, I don't believe so.
Before we get off this public or free Wi-Fi discussion, who are the service providers behind the free Wi-Fi?
You see, the free, we are engaging different service providers.
Who are the current, for the 17 hotspots, who's providing that internet?
Yeah, we have literally on Google. Google is providing that. We are rolling it out using the telecom backbone.
So telecom and backbone are the providers as we speak?
Yeah, the telecom. Telecom is basically the backbone. We are leveraging on the telecom backbone infrastructure, but we are engaging different service providers.
So this is something that could be expanded as we move forward? And make this public and available information?
Oh, yes. You see, what we are saying as government is that anything that we are going to do from a corporate governance perspective will be above the board. As and when the members of the public want any information from government, we will provide that information. And this is actually anchored in the Access to Information Act 2016. We have nothing to hide. In fact, we have even told the media that we want the media to continue executing their advocacy role and checking on what is happening in government for purposes of informing the public. All that we are going to do will be above board in government. In fact, one of the initiatives we are introducing within my ministry is to ensure that we'll periodically be giving members of the public update on on the projects which the government is rolling out for purposes of information.
And I ask you these questions because we've had predecessors who launched projects with great fanfare, but updates were never given, and the fate of those projects up until today remains unclear. Let me give you a project, an example. Your predecessor at one point told the nation that Google balloons to strengthen our internet infrastructure were airborne somewhere. We don't know today whether those balloons are still there, what their impact has been, who footed that bill.
You see, mistakes which have been made in the past should not inhibit good intentions moving forward. We can use those as lessons.
Was it a mistake?
No. I'm not saying it was a mistake.
Okay.
But I'm just talking from a holistic perspective that if any mistakes have been made in the past, we should not be captive to that. We believe in pursuing a futuristic agenda. Let's look at what has been done before, and if, based on lessons learned, let's use that to inform what we are going to do moving into the future. But for us as Kenya Kwanza government, we are not interested in lamenting about what has been done in the past. We are here to provide transformational leadership to ensure that we correct the ills which have been undertaken in the past. Okay. We are in a precarious position where the economy is not doing well, and we are not hiding this. We are telling Kenyans that we inherited a country which actually was dry from a public coffers perspective. So we are looking at ways and means of re-engineering the entire government operations, more so from a revenue perspective, so that we enhance our revenue base, move away from relying on foreign support by way of capital inflow, and we see what we can do using locally generated revenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of moving forward, last year President Ruto promised that the country would be manufacturing smartphones.
Oh, yes.
Worth less than 5,000 or 5,000 shillings in 2023.
Yes.
We're in 2023.
Oh, yes.
How far are we in achieving that promise?
You know, the telecom companies have come together. We are looking at Safaricom, we are looking at Jamii Telecom, we are looking at Airtel. Despite the fact that they are competitors, they have been creative enough. Maybe I don't need to use the word creative. They are agile to the extent that they have realized they need to work together to enjoy economies of scale and leverage on some level of creativity and innovation, and address a deficit in the market. That deficit is smart-enabled phones. For example, today we have rolled out the Hustler Fund. Most of those whom we are targeting are those who are at the bottom echelons of the Kenyan society. Not all of them will have smart-enabled phones. So that is basically a market, a void that needs to be filled. The telecos realize that in the not too distant future, Kenya must become a manufacturer of phones or chip-enabled technology as opposed to a net importer. So we are going to start manufacturing. The infrastructure is already there, the Konza Technopolis. They are going to roll out this initiative by around July.
So the nitty-gritty is Konza Technopolis is involved?
The infrastructure is there, yes, providing the infrastructure.
It's providing the infrastructure?
The infrastructure. The telecom companies will set up their operations there. They are not just going to manufacture telephone equipment, but we are going to start, as a country, we are going to start manufacturing ICT software. And in the not too distant future, believe you me, Kenya will be a net exporter of technology as opposed to an importer.
Okay. What are the timelines that we're working? When can that
This year we
June, is it July? Do you have any specifics?
Worst case scenario, August.
There will be.
But the target is July. Worth $40. So that will be about 4,000 to 5,000 shillings per unit. Okay. In the Kenyan market, locally manufactured.
Have you given?
And we will not just be able to meet the demands in the local market. We will also have surplus for export. So we will not be talking about importing phones from China or Korea. No.
Have you given specifications to the ones you've tasked with this job on which components must be made here and which ones we will import if it's not possible to make them here?
We are going to, they have already, you see, you don't go into the market to try your luck. You start by doing a feasibility study. The feasibility study has already been done. And that is what is even informing the cost propositions that are envisaged.
And it showed that it is
the market demand. The market demand. Yes, the market demand has been ascertained. The envisaged cost of productions have been ascertained. The envisaged profit levels by the telecos is also been ascertained.
Now sorry, let me let you finish.
Yeah, so it is not a question of trying the luck. It's actually a feasible, bankable proposal that is in place, and the telecos are going to roll out this initiative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's very interesting. I don't know if you're going to rope in the universities as well. We know some of them have been doing.
Well, anything you are doing in the space of technology has to catch up with the level of innovation and creativity in the operational environment. And that means on a continuous basis, you must undertake continuous research. So in all that we are doing, we will work with entities that are involved in research. Within the Konza Technopolis, if I may take you back, one of the fundamental projects we have there is the KAIST University. which is a virtual university and an entity that is very strong in the area of research leveraging on technology.
So that is part. And now that you've taken us to Konza, let's just dig in there.
Yeah.
We know you've conducted at least one familiarization tour, if not more,
of the
Konza Technopolis.
Yeah.
Waziri, in the minds of many Kenyans, Konza has never quite left the imaginary state of things because it's been a project that's been on for about 14 years, give or take. Some actually feel that it is a ministerial fiction. Please update us on the Konza story today.
In my view, there's nothing like a ministerial fiction. Konza is a very feasible proposition in the digital marketplace. We look at Konza as our own version of the Silicon Savannah. If you go to Konza today, we have already put in place all the necessary ICT infrastructure. As we speak, we have got a fully fledged data center there at the Konza Technopolis. In fact, all MDAs are today struggling to onboard their data at the data center at the Konza Technopolis, as opposed to keeping their data in secure horizons. And we are encouraging even the private sector to onboard or to store their data at the Konza Technopolis. So we have got a functional data center. We have laid out all the fibers there. The land is there in existence. So all we are appealing for is for the private sector to come in and invest in that space, in that digital space.
Now, the private sector was very keen to invest 13, 14 years ago, locally and globally as well.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to convince them now? Because they've heard from your predecessors, Bitangen Demo spoke of Konza City as a beacon of excellence, not just for Kenya, but all of Africa, 2013. 2014 to 2022, CS Musheru, a former, spoke of it as a part of our Vision 2030, a great project. And one wonders, are we close to achieving the 200,000 jobs, for example, that were promised as part of that project? And all
we are going to attain the job targets that were envisaged once we put our act together. You see, the challenge we have been facing in this country is that we come up with initiatives. Anytime you come up with an initiative that is new in the marketplace, there will also be resistance from market players who have been benefiting from the status quo. So to push this agenda to a logical conclusion, you need a very, very strong transformational leadership. I'm sorry to say that the biggest problem that we have been facing in that country is a leadership deficit. We come up with a good initiative, but at some point in time, we are not able to pursue them to a logical conclusion because we become captives of those who are benefiting from the status quo. Today, we are lucky that we have got a leadership that is not just a risk taker, but a leadership that is ready and willing to pursue an agenda based on a very clear vision, so long as that agenda is in response to the challenges facing the common mwananchi and is for the good of the Kenyan economy.
So now
let me put it this way. We have been in government now for how many months?
4 months. But of course, CSS came in.
So practically, as government, we have only been fully constituted for 3 weeks. Yeah? Because the PSS came in, where the accounting officers in government came in 3 weeks ago. We have got an ambitious agenda which we believe is feasible, is viable, and is responsive to the needs of the common mwananchi. We have got a leadership that is transformational, a leadership that is willing to take risks, but pursue this agenda to a logical conclusion. And I don't see, from where I sit, why we should be able to, we are going to fail.
Okay.
We should be able to realize the vision that we had for Kenya.
We're getting questions from our viewers, and I have questions, but I still need to take some of their thoughts. They are asking this evening, in the leadership and vision that you speak of, where do the following institutions sit? The Postal Corporation of Kenya.
Under my ministry.
Where do they sit in that vision because of the challenges they are currently facing? The Kenya Broadcasting Corporation as well.
I've stated from the onset that at some point in time, I would wish to be held accountable by way of performance on the basis of revitalization of both KBC and the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. It is achievable, it is realistic, it is attainable. We are going to turn around both the Postal Corporation of Kenya and the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. You see, the challenge we have been having with those entities, one has been bad governance and wrong business model. Yeah? If you look at Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, it has been operating as if it is exercising some monopoly power in the operational environment, yet there's now competition from the private sector. You see, KBC is not just profit-driven. Based on its mandate, it's also got a functional mandate of providing news to the Kenyan what? To the Kenyan public. So there's the public good and there's the private what? There's the private perspective. But somehow it's been stuck to the way it was doing business before. So we really need to come in and re-engineer the operations of KBC by one, ensuring that we upgrade the infrastructure. Two, we must re-engineer the content. Okay? The demands of the market today are quite different. First of all, even the listenership and viewership in the broadcasting space is youthful today. We're leveraging on technology.
Correct?
Yeah, things have changed. So we cannot continue running KBC the way we were running it before. We must start from the market, determine what the market needs, and then develop content that is responsive to the needs of the market. And those are things we need to do.
So specifically in regards to KBC, there's a court order at the moment requiring the board of KBC to reinstate former MD, Naim Bilal.
Yeah.
As of this evening, I believe that court order has not been complied with. What's your position?
Yeah, but the Attorney General's chambers filed for a stay. Yeah, that is the status. The case is in court, so we wait for the court to do its thing to a logical conclusion. One thing we are not going to do as Kenya Kwanza government is to interfere with the operations of other arms of government. If there are court orders, we will obey them. If there's a process in court, we will wait for the judicial system to pursue those, to exercise their authority to a logical conclusion. And as and when decisions are made, we will abide by those decisions.
That is when you...
But as executive, we are not going to interfere with either the operations of the judiciary on one hand or the legislature on the other. We will let them do their thing. And also that thinking will also be extended to the independent commissions. They have to be truly independent in the letter and spirit of the Constitution.
I know you have an early morning tomorrow. You mentioned you've already laid out your agenda, so I won't keep you here too long, but a few more questions.
Oh, yes.
A viewer here, Brian, is asking, please ask him about the fate of Telkom Kenya Limited. Is it a parastatal? In a recent interview, I think it was on JKL here, when new CSs were hosted, CS Moses Kuria said that the nationalization of Telkom was going to be stopped. That's a question that's coming in. What's your take on that particular matter?
You see, telecom, the interest of government in telecom is that telecom is in possession of very, very crucial infrastructure. It's been actually a private entity. There was a process of offloading those shares to the government through the National Treasury, which is actually the custodian of government interests as far as investment in such entities is concerned. That process is not quite complete. There are issues which are being sorted out within that area, and I really don't want to go into details. Yeah, the interest we have is government is actually that it is a strategic entity because it has got very critical infrastructure in its position. If we get the opposition, if we get the opportunity to get involved in the management of telecom, to some extent we can, but we don't want to go back to where we were, where the government was competing with the private sector in business. The role of government is to create an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive, put in place an enabling policy, legal and regulatory framework, and let the private sector do its thing.
CS, before you go, I can't let you go before I ask you this question.
Yeah.
We've seen you a number of times making trips to Nyanza.
Yes.
Part of the activities there has been to distribute food, amongst others.
Yeah.
What would you say to those who viewed those trips from a political perspective?
Why? I mean, you see, I don't know why Kenyans are too preoccupied with politics as opposed to the economy. As Kenya Kwanza government, politics is not part of our agenda over the next 5 years. And if you are looking for a performance indicator from this government on the basis of politics, you're going to get disappointed because we don't exist in that space.
Yes, we've seen you spend, well, if your tweets are anything to judge you by,
yes,
a considerable amount of time in a region that voted the opposition way. You have a homecoming this weekend. Some would say there's a bit of, and then we knew you with a political background in addition to your professional background,
you see,
as well.
Food is a basic necessity. Just the same way Kenyans have been dying in certain places, have been starving in places like Baringo or Turkana, we also have people who have been undergoing very difficult circumstances in Nyanza. In fact, in integral components of that region, people can hardly do 2 meals per day. So as we pursue our development agenda, it is also a cardinal responsibility of government to ensure that the common mwananchi gets basic what? Basic needs, and food is one of them, of the basic needs. So we are basically just responding to the demands of the market, that our people are going hungry when the government, this food is a government initiative. It is not an Owalo initiative. And so when you see me distributing food, I'm basically acting under instructions of the executive to help distribute food in that area to those who are actually undergoing starvation.
So how do you then balance?
There's no politics in it. There's no politics in it. And if you ask me, when you see, most of these trips I've made to that region have been during my spare time. It does not in any way interfere with my mandate and functional responsibilities as the CS for ICT and the digital economy.
Because I was going to ask you how you balance the expectations of an apolitical cabinet, which you're part of,
yes,
versus your political background.
I've not done any politics since I was appointed cabinet secretary. Mm-hmm. I've not done any politics since I was appointed cabinet secretary. I've solely been focusing on my mandate and the mission that I'm pursuing, which of course I will pursue to a logical conclusion, and I can assure you I will deliver. But you don't operate in a vacuum. You must also respond to emerging issues in your operational environment, depending on unfolding events from time to time. One of those emerging issues in that space is famine, and we have to respond to it. And that is why immediately we came into office, one of the first steps which His Excellency the President undertook to ensure that we have got sustainable food security was to reduce the cost of fertilizer from the hitherto 7,000 shillings per bag to a meager 3,500 shillings per bag. Now we are rolling out distribution of seeds. We are rolling out provision of free fertilizer.
Simply furthering his agenda with your trips.
But I'm an appointee of the President. Any powers that I hold or any mandate that I execute is at the behest of the President, who is the appointing authority.
So to tell me this in your parting shot, 14th January 2023, I've seen a poster somewhere, all roads headed to Assemble for your homecoming function.
It's a Thanksgiving.
Tell us about that.
Well, we have invited Kenyans of all shades of life from all over the country. You know, I've been in this public space for a while. I've been a consultant for 23 years. There are so many professionals I've interacted with. There are so many government officials I've interacted with. I've also been in the political space. I've interacted with so many politicians. So we have actually invited Kenyans from all over the country for this Thanksgiving ceremony. I've got a critical mass of friends from all facets of the Kenyan economy, and we have invited them for this function. And I can assure you that it will be a good Thanksgiving ceremony. We expect a critical mass of Kenyans from all corners of the country.
Does that involve those from the other side of the political landscape?
It is not a political event. It is a Thanksgiving event. So I don't want to give it a political dimension. We have invited leaders of all shades and at all levels of government to attend.
Okay.
And we believe they will join us during that ceremony, and we'll have a good function.
CS, you lead a large ministry with many questions I could have asked, but I think we'll stop it there for today. Thank you so much for your time.
It was my pleasure. I look forward to coming back again.
Thank you. Thank you.